Empire actor Jussie Smollett is now in police custody.
He's charged with making false statements to police, which could result in prison time.
He cost the city and Cook County a fortune and resources.
This particular hate hoax has to be atoned for.
Special Counsel Bob Mueller's probe expected to wrap up as early as next week.
The special counsel needs to bring his evidence forward, if he has any, and let's get on with it.
That American ISIS bride says, I'm sorry I made some mistakes. I want to come home.
The bottom line is that what she did was what they call levying war against the state.
Kamala Harris joked about smoking pot, but guess who isn't laughing? Her own father. The pathetic pandering is so cringeworthy that even her own father is throwing her under the bus.
Thanks for nothing. A Times Square billboard slamming Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for praising Amazon's decision to cancel their New York City headquarters.
It's huge. I'm paying it most of the time. I'm on a plan. They just do an estimate monthly.
They do offer that.
Right.
I like that plan.
But I'll tell you one thing they do about this place. The minute you're done with the show, they shut the lights. I mean, I walked in between the 5 and outnumbered overtime, and there's not a soul here. You think we abandoned the place. And then it comes back on. So we're doing a great job watching the light bill.
Between the 5 and outnumbered overtime, we're on between those two shows.
No one.
Between the 5, which is at 5 o'clock, and outnumbered
overtime.
The 5. Oh, at night.
5 at night and outnumbered overtime. This place is empty.
So they turn off the lights.
Between the 5, which is at 5 p.m., ends at 6. Then outnumbered overtime is at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
When Heather Faulkner says, "Here's Dana," to the time Harris Faulkner says, "Here's Dana."
He doesn't know the schedule, and he doesn't know his friend's
go
names.
right off.
Are you talking about the story with Martha McCallum?
Oh my gosh!
goodness.
Okay, we're gonna hash all of this out during the next commercial break when the lights are on.
Boy,
Okay, can we talk some news here?
That's right. We'll get down to that. We've got a Fox News alert. Empire actor Jussie Smollett is now in police custody. He reportedly turned himself in at 5:15 local time Chicago. There are reports he may have made a statement. He is currently being booked, having a mugshot taken, and also fingerprinted.
Not a good day for him. His arrest comes hours after Smollett was named an official suspect in the alleged hate crime attack against himself. He is charged with making false statements to police that can result in prison time.
We're going to learn more about those charges in a brand new news conference that's coming up in about 2 hours. Matt Finn is, meanwhile, live in Chicago as Smollett prepares to face a judge. Matt.
Brian, Ainsley, Steve, right after this report, we are headed to that news conference, so we will bring you the details from Chicago Police Superintendent. More about Jussie Smollett's arrest expected to be revealed. Jussie Smollett is represented by 3 different attorneys, including high-profile criminal defense attorney Mark Garagos, and it's our understanding that Smollett never responded to Chicago Police's final request for an interview that they made last Saturday. So police took their case to a grand jury where they got the felony charge approved and the ability to arrest Smollett. Smollett's attorney released a statement writing, quote, "Like any other citizen, Mr. Smollett enjoys the presumption of innocence, particularly when there has been an investigation like this one where information, both true and false, has been repeatedly leaked. Given these circumstances, we intend to conduct a thorough investigation and to mount an aggressive defense." New surveillance video also shows the 2 brothers that allegedly carried out the hoax with Smollett purchasing supplies for the attack, including black masks and a red hat, which Smollett reportedly instructed them to purchase. The brothers' attorney says they received some type of money from Smollett, but not in the narrative the public thinks. Chicago police say they do not expect to charge these brothers. The brothers' attorney praises Chicago police's meticulous investigation and says the truth will be revealed.
This story has a lot of complications to it. We're not trying to hide anything from the press, but we wanted to make sure that everything checked out.
Over the past few days, we've been trying to figure out exactly where Smollett has been. We have not been able to confirm that, but now we obviously do know he is here in the city of Chicago. He is in police custody, and in a few hours, he will be transported to appear before a judge. Brian, Ainsley, Steve.
I wonder what excuse he could possibly have for this.
Well, thank you, Matt. There was one story out this morning out of Chicago that he had made a statement to police when he was taken into custody. Then something I just saw said he had not. Nonetheless, when they do have that 10 a.m. Chicago or Eastern time, we believe, press conference. I would imagine that is when we will get word of any
We will all
statement.
be watching.
Plus, we'll probably get a look at the first mugshot, if that is.
Yeah, it has been such a fascinating story to watch. We all want to know the truth, and if this really was a hoax, and if it is, how horrific that would be. But it's something everyone's talking about. Judge Napolitano was on with us earlier, and we were asking, do you think he was truthful with his attorney? He said, I don't think so, based on this. Watch.
Cost the city and Cook County a fortune in resources and money. I am going to guess he did not tell his own lawyers the truth. If he told his own lawyers the truth, there was a time, maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 days ago, they could have gone to the prosecutors and worked out a deal. Now it is too late.
It is
No
too
deal.
late. Plus, the big question is, the brothers apparently told the grand jury yesterday, according to TMZ, that they had nothing to do with the letter. So who put together that hate letter that apparently arrived at the Empire headquarters a week before this staged attack? And the story is that he was Jesse Smollett was so disappointed that it didn't get a bigger reaction. That's why they staged this supposed hate attack.
A series of some of the worst decisions you could possibly imagine, it seems. Meanwhile, about how it's handled, it's amazing how hopeful many in the media were that this whole thing would end up being an anti-Trump story that you could ultimately blame President Trump for. Listen.
There's a real distinction to be made here between the way a lot of the local media out in Chicago handled this and the way the national media handled it. The local media in Chicago did pretty well on this story, and I think the reason was that to them it was a local crime story made into a big story by the fact that we had a celebrity as the alleged victim. The national media, I think, looked at this story and decided it was a Trump story, because in the national media, particularly in Washington, there's only one story all the time, and it's Donald Trump. And to most of them, it's Donald Trump and how awful and dangerous he is. So any story that, alleges that Trump supporters have, in the crudest and most bigoted way have assaulted somebody fits right into their view of Trump and of his supporters.
Right. It's amazing that people have even segued. I've been watching some other shows. They even segue to, well, even if this isn't true, it doesn't matter. Donald Trump has still brought hate in our country. All right, really? We're taking a fake story and beating Donald Trump over the head with it.
Right.
Well, there was a rush to judgment initially, and now a lot of those people who said it was one thing had to backtrack.
People are wondering why he would even do this. He's a
Great
famous
question.
actor.
Right.
Why needing the extra attention if he did do this?
Oh, he's an activist, an anti-Trumper, obviously. It's 7 minutes after the hour. I couldn't believe this was true. I had to hit the side of my iPad 3 times.
Yeah, right, I know.
The first story.
It's over.
Yeah,
it might be over.
Yeah, the first story in Drudge said that Mueller probe to be wrapped up as soon as next week.
Right, I think Drudge attributed that to CNN at that point. And it does line up when you think about the fact that we heard last week or so, Rod Rosenstein is going to step down as his job. The president's already going to nominate somebody from the Transportation Department. Rosenstein had said he would be there through the process. And now, what's curious is Josh Hawley, the new senator from the great state of Missouri, he has heard Andrew McCabe over the last week talk about how, he had a conversation with Rod Rosenstein. Hey, how do we get rid of the president? Should we do this? Who's in on the cabinet that we should talk to? That is why Senator Hawley now has sent a letter to Chris Wray, the FBI director, saying, I need some answers about what was going on, and I want the answers as soon as you can get to them. Here's the senator.
It sounds like to me the FBI didn't want any oversight. The FBI didn't want to be held accountable. And when the president and others tried to do so, they retaliated against him. So I want to know. I want to hear from the FBI. I want to know who launched this counterintelligence investigation. I want to know why. I want to know who oversaw it. I want to know who was involved with it. And I want to know now. We need to have oversight here. That's why I've demanded answers from the FBI, and I'm willing to take whatever steps are necessary to get those answers.
Mueller has to deliver the report to the new AG, William Barr, and then the report is not required to be made public. And then Mueller is required to explain his reason for prosecuting or not prosecuting anyone named in that report.
Yeah, there is a sense that Mueller wanted he wanted his interview with the president. He got written questions. He's going to close it out with that. Never look for a subpoena. Guess he had enough answers. The word is the Mueller team was looking heavily into his attempt. Was there an attempt to obstruct this investigation between his tweets and what he's done behind closed doors? There's been 26 individuals who have been indicted for this. The Russians are never going to see any problems with it. But for Roger Stone and for Michael Flynn, they've been caught up in it. There's a sense now in Washington, as Jonathan Carr alluded to about 3 weeks ago, that this will not be the smoking gun to take down President Trump. And if it's not, what are Democrats going to do since they've spent the last 2 years lauding and protecting Robert Mueller?
They'll look at Adam Schiff's investigation now.
But
try to
ultimately,
find something.
it was all about Russian collusion. You know, there's people who've been arrested, the Russian bots, the bot farm and stuff like that.
We arrested all the bots.
There was no Russian collusion that we've seen so far, but we still have to wait for that report. It could come out next week.
Yeah, if I'm going to try to get through that.
No more bots.
I think it's going to be very interesting. Although a lot of people won't accept it.
I'm asked every day if I'm a robot or not in some form. I am not a robot.
We need a very awkward toss. We haven't had one in a while.
We haven't had
I got one. I got one. So joining us now before.
No, you can't love the
Before
toss.
outnumbered overtime, here's Julian.
I see where you were both going with that.
I do
Sitting
too.
in the back of
I
the
do
train,
too, yeah.
actually. All right, let's get you caught up on the news that we're following, starting with this. A Coast Guard lieutenant accused of plotting a mass domestic terror attack is due in court today. Prosecutors say Christopher Paul Hassan had a hit list of possible targets, including Democratic leaders and journalists. He also wanted to kill every last person on Earth. The self-proclaimed white nationalist stockpiling 15 firearms with more than 1,000 rounds of ammo in his basement in Maryland. The U.S. facing conflict with disputed Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. The Fed's now trying to figure out how to send food, medicine, and hygiene products to Venezuela by tomorrow, after Maduro blocked international aid. Earlier this week, acting Venezuelan President Juan Guaido pledged to allow supplies to enter the country. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says he will not run for Senate in 2020.
I love Kansas. I'm going to be the Secretary of State as long as President Trump gives me the opportunity to serve as America's senior diplomat. It's ruled out. I'm here. I'm loving it.
The former Kansas congressman was reportedly being urged to run for Senate by Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Longtime Senator Pat Roberts, also a Republican, is retiring at the end of his current term. Just call him Honest Abs. This shirtless statue of Abraham Lincoln, which has been around for a while, by the way, decades, is now going viral after someone tweeted it saying, quote, "Reminder that the Los Angeles Federal Courthouse has a statue of Abraham Lincoln where he's a shirtless young stud suggestively tugging at his waistband like a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model." Someone tweeting back, quote, "The separation of shirt and state." There are a lot of really funny puns online. Like, this is where the internet is at its finest.
Not Honest Abe, Honest Ab.
It looks like a clothed statue of David, but then you see his face. It's like Abraham Lincoln's face.
He was a very good wrestler,
strange.
probably a very good shape. I don't know where he wrestled
He
at.
was tall.
Right.
He was tall.
Chopped a lot of wood.
Marfan syndrome, they think, maybe?
That is
We're not really sure.
Long arms, yep.
All right, 8:13 now.
Okay, the number is shocking. 500,000 illegal immigrants could cross the border this year alone, but that is not even the scariest part. The brand new warning coming up next.
And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez protested Amazon's headquarters. Now one Times Square billboard is calling her out. How the freshman congresswoman is responding. That story next. Yeah, don't blame me.
On Sirius XM, your favorite shows on Channel 114. Plus, every story, every 15 minutes. Fox News headlines 24/7, Channel 115.
All right, here we go. As Democrats get ready to challenge President Trump's emergency declaration on the border wall, a new study reveals 500,000 illegal aliens are projected to successfully cross the Mexican border this year into our country, undetected by Border Patrol agents. Steve Camarata is the research director for the Center of Immigration Studies. He joins us now. Steve, we focus on how many apprehensions and how many cross. How do we know what we don't know?
Yeah, well, there are several ways to look at this. And that 500,000 figure doesn't necessarily just mean the border. It can also include people who overstay a visa. But it's clear that at minimum 200,000 people, but more are expected to do it this year, successfully, illegally cross the border between the ports of entry. And we know it because they show up in census data and some other data sources. So there's just no question about it. Well, I should say, it's a pretty solid estimate, and actually it's been true for a while. The number of people who get caught also can give us insight into how big that number is. So in addition to Census Bureau data, some administrative data, the number of people getting caught, we do have a pretty good idea of how many people likely successfully cross the border, and that number has at least been 200,000, and then you're looking at about 300,000 people successfully overstaying a visa. They come in on a tourist visa, don't go home, that sort of thing.
So where is it trending? A lot of people say, hey, the numbers aren't as bad as the president makes it out to be. Over the last 5 years, the numbers were higher, they're going down. What do you say to that?
Well, there is some evidence that the level of illegal immigration into the United States is not as high as it was, say, a decade ago. The last year looks to be pretty high. We don't have all the complete data for that, and the year before that looks to be high. So here's the bottom line, and your listeners can decide, is it a crisis? How big of a problem? Everybody still agrees there's 10 to 12 million people living in the United States illegally. There's about 17 million people here, if you count U.S.-born children, that is illegal immigrants and their children. 500,000 new people settle in the United States illegally each year. 250,000 cross the border successfully, 250 to 300,000 overstay a temporary visa. Those numbers are enormous. Maybe the way to think about it is the number of people settling in the United States illegally each year is roughly equivalent to the population of Atlanta. These are big numbers.
Big numbers, and now they're more families, and they're not from Mexico. They're from OTMs, other than Mexicans, which shows you there's something with our Central and South American policy that's giving off mixed messages. Steve, we'll see. We got 4 Democrats going to the border to see for themselves if it's a crisis or not. I look forward to seeing what they have to say. Steve Camarada, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, straight ahead. Many 2020 Democrats have some far-left ideas on their agenda. But which candidate is the most socialist of them all? We'll be giving out trophies. Our socialism scale is coming your way. Plus, it's the world's largest heavy equipment auction, and it's happening today. Jeff Flock has a preview of what's on the auction block. Hey, Jeff.
Right in the middle of it, and I can almost not hear you because of the sound. Look at all of this stuff. That is what they call a motor scraper. It's essentially a large and expensive shovel. Thousands of pieces of equipment. Biggest auction in history. Back in a moment.
Here we go. The world's largest heavy equipment auction is happening right now.
Wow, look at that. I didn't even know this existed. Thousands of people from all over the world come together down in Florida. Millions of dollars worth of equipment is up for grabs.
Right. People got to buy it. Jeff Flock is from our sister network, Fox Business.
That is so cool.
Hey, Jeff.
It is. You know, this is just incredible. If you were here, I mean, take a look at this. This is not the half of it. There are literally thousands of pieces of heavy equipment. Everything from these articulated dump trucks to bulldozers to this guy over here. This is what they call, what is it, Kieran? What do they call this?
This is a elevated motor scraper.
Now, the business is booming right now. The economy is booming right now. So there's tremendous demand for this thing.
Oh, absolutely. So, there are small and mid-sized businesses who would love to take that piece of equipment and go to work with it tomorrow if they can.
Kieran Holm is with Ritchie Brothers, and they do these auctions. This is the biggest, though, in history.
Absolutely, biggest in history. Over 13,500 pieces.
One of these pieces of equipment which you build roads with and that sort of thing, that would typically go for what, $500,000?
$500,000 new, you bet.
What can I get one here today for?
I mean, you might pay $100,000, $70,000. This is an unreserved auction, so you're going to pay what you want to pay.
No reserve on this.
Correct, every single piece.
And when the economy booms, this is when this thing.
That's right. I mean, these folks are clearly very, very bullish about the economy. They're willing to go and invest in equipment that they can put to work for the next few years to come, at least.
Gotcha. Before we get away, hey Chad, run with me over here, because I'll tell you, you just can't believe this goes on for acres and acres. How many bidders and how many pieces of equipment?
So we've got over 13,500 pieces of equipment. We have right now over 12,000 registered bidders, which equals the number of people we had last year. Last year was a $278 million sale. Yeah.
Booming economy, booming business of auctioning heavy equipment. And if you need a front-end loader, I can get one for you cheap.
I need a forklift. Brian, what do you need?
Well, I have
backhoe.
I have one of. No, I got plenty of backhoes. I have one of everything, but I'm just gonna just remind me to change the oil in them. Good luck, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Wow.
Steve, isn't that the coolest idea?
That is cool if you need heavy equipment. All right, meanwhile, let's talk about that guy right there. Democratic socialist Bernie Sanders is officially running for the White House, but the entire Democratic Party seems to be racing to the left with Bernie. So where do some of the candidates and their big government ideas fall on our socialism scale? Here to break it down is Chris Wilson, the former campaign pollster for Senator Ted Cruz. Today he's down in Austin. Chris, good morning to you.
Morning, Steve.
Okay, so last time, 2016, Bernie Sanders came close to Hillary Clinton, and now he seems to be the business model because so many of the Democrats are racing to the left, but nobody is really out-Bernieing Bernie at this point, are they?
No, well, you have to give Bernie Sanders credit for consistency. If there's an idea out there that will drag America into mid-20th century style European socialism, he's for it. And if there's not one out there for it, he'll invent one. I mean, whether it comes to trying to take over the entire economy through the Green New Deal, to massive tax cuts, to eliminating private health insurance and Medicare for all, it is really remarkable how far to the left he's gone. And, you know, it's really, when you look at the way in which the entire Democratic field is aligning themselves, they are walking right into what I think was the brilliant trap set by President Trump during the State of the Union, in which he made the call that America will not become a socialist country.
Okay, so let's look at some of Bernie's issues on a socialism scale. So, Chris, as we look at the screen, far left is socialism, and then you have Bernie Sanders' standard. And then to the right is actually, since these are all Democrats, is the center, and that's Amy Klobuchar. So you've got Bernie on the far left, Amy Klobuchar in the center, and then closest to Bernie, you've got Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, and then closer to Klobuchar, you've got Cory Booker.
Right. Well, I would say, Klobuchar is interesting. It's going to be interesting to watch, particularly as it works itself out into the debates, because she's trying to become what you would classify in the modern Democratic Party as a moderate, but just 4 to 6 years ago, we would consider to be the far left. And she's doing that in a manner that isn't really all that in fashion today in the Democratic Party, which is incrementalism. So I almost feel kind of bad for her staff as they begin to gin up a presidential campaign. They'll build a team around her, and they're going to find very quickly that there's not a real taste for that or appetite for it in the Democratic Party. I think when you come to look at the other candidates, I mean, Elizabeth Warren is, that's a campaign that I really believe is kind of almost stillborn in the sense of she can't even rise to the polls in New Hampshire, which is in the same media market as Massachusetts. And her signature policies of regulating Wall Street are almost too moderate today, where you could say that eat the rich has become their battle cry. And it's, you look at the other candidates that are kind of fall in between, whether it's Kamala Harris trying to eliminate modern private health insurance, but at the same time, her policies tough on crime are closer to Bill Clinton really than they were to AOC. Okay. So she's going to have a tough time defining herself.
All right, let's define their tax policy once again. Far left, closest to socialism, is Bernie. Then you got Amy Klobuchar in the center. Then you got essentially the same lineup in the center. You got Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, and Cory Booker.
Yeah, well, what's going to happen here is you're just going to see them all race to the top. I mean, how much of a percentage it's almost going to be like a bidding war. Can we jump on top of each other? I think where it begins today in February of 2019, is going to be very different from where it is in the primaries. And again, this is where the debates are going to come down. You saw this to a little bit in the Republican primary in 2016, and you'll see the Democrats do it as well, just kind of outbid each other. Who's going to raise taxes the most?
Excellent question. I've heard in the last week or so a number of Democratic strategists talking about, well, we're not really talking about socialism because we're just talking about social programs. Because if so many people have equated Social Security with socialism. That's what the Democrats say. What do the Republicans say about that?
I think, again, it gets back to my original point, which just kind of plays right into the hands of where Donald Trump set out in the State of the Union to define this race. Mm-hmm. If the Democrats follow the lead of their new hot media stars like AOC and race to the left, and Bernie Sanders is potentially, there's a good chance of being their nominee, this becomes a campaign between capitalism versus socialism.
It's an easy choice then when people do vote in a couple of years. All right, Chris, thank you very much.
You bet, thank you.
All right, speaking of the left's priorities, Elizabeth Warren says, forget the border. these are the real national emergencies.
Let's do the list. Climate change, gun violence, student loan debt, right off the top.
Dana Lash says Republicans should make an ad out of that, and she will join us live from Texas next.
Job Creators Network.
They blame the Democratic Socialists for Amazon canceling its New York headquarters, which will cost 25,000 jobs and billions of dollars of economic activity in New York. She tweeted back essentially that this particular ad was being placed by some folks who are aligned with the president to try to make her look bad. Let's go to Dana Lash. She's a nationally syndicated radio host and the host of the Dana Show. Joins us right now from Texas.
Hey, Dana.
What do you make of this billboard talking about how AOC helped derail the Amazon deal?
Well, the truth hurts, doesn't it? She's exactly responsible, I think, for this, and that's why there are other lawmakers from the state of New York going at her as well. I talked to a lot of people when I was up in New York just recently. I was on my way to Connecticut to speak at Yale, and I heard from a number of people that they were, these are just working class people who are upset with the tax revenue that is being lost because of her actions in this area. She thinks it's because she was attacking Republicans on Twitter saying, well, people think I don't understand what I'm talking about. Because you don't. Yeah. She was actually tweeting that there's $3 billion sitting around somewhere that that New York was just giving to Amazon. She has an egregious financial illiteracy problem. And I think maybe she needs to get a refund on her degree.
Well, can you believe she was celebrating? I mean, this is a major company. It could bring billions of dollars. It could bring lots of jobs. And she was celebrating that we lost the deal.
Yeah, a lot of good paying jobs, 25,000 jobs coming into that area. And billions of dollars of tax revenue that would, have gone a long way to help restore and fix up the infrastructure that she was talking about. She said that it wouldn't have been able to support that. That's what that tax revenue that you're not getting was actually going to go towards supporting and assisting, and you just cost all of that for your constituents.
Right. And listen, when you have 200 cities competing for the same company, you have to sweeten the deal. Some people weren't happy with the type of deal that Amazon got, but that's what happens when you're a corporation that's the fastest growing maybe in the world, and they promise to come. You got to swap to do this. They made a mistake, though, by not being more transparent with the negotiations. And Mayor de Blasio blames Amazon, by the way, for pulling out just because of a little heat. They didn't need it. They don't need to be protested. This should have been a trophy ceremony. Instead, it was a protest platform.
Exactly, and I completely agree with some of the criticisms on the negotiations as well, and I don't like giving these sweetheart deals to companies that are coming in while penalizing the companies that have been there, adding to the tax base for years and not giving them, these same opportunities. But this is how the game works until the game is changed, but this is how the game works. And they missed out on billions in revenue in the process. Now, was it worth it? Was it worth it for all of those people in the end when you do the math? No, it wasn't.
She did tweet out after that ad came out, a few things effectively communicate the power we've built in fighting dark money and anti-worker policies like billionaire-funded groups blowing tons of cash on whack billboards. When we're talking about this one is funded by the Mercers, who have been big supporters of Donald Trump. Meanwhile, last night, way past our bedtime on the Late Late Show, Elizabeth Warren was talking about the president who has declared a national emergency at our southern border. She regards these as true national emergencies.
If you were in office, what would constitute a national emergency?
Oh, let's do the list. Climate change, gun violence, student loan debt, right off the top. Congress, the president, as a country, those are the things we should be working on.
Okay, Dana, what do you think of her list?
Yeah, well, she's trying to be Santa Claus, unfortunately, and, Santa Claus
Well, no, that's just not going to work out. First off, the national emergency, people can have debates on the merits of calling a national emergency and whether or not that's going to diminish the precedent set to use this option in the future. But the fact remains that Congress, again, also debatable whether they should be doing this, authorized this office back in the 70s to already do this. Secondly, the Secure Fences Act already started what she's now pretending to oppose currently and what a lot of Democrats supported back in 2006. And lastly, money was already appropriated for this particular purpose. So you have a legislative backbone for what the president is doing. There's no legislative backbone to go and start undermining the Second Amendment or giving everyone free college, free at the expense of the hardworking taxpayer. So she doesn't have any basis in reality. This is why she's polling so low in her own area.
All right, well, it's time to do some show prep for the Dana Show. Dana, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
All right, 20 minutes now before the top of the hour. Hey, Jillian.
Good morning. So we're following a story out of California, and this involved a suspect opening fire on a deputy, turning a traffic stop into a deadly shootout. The dramatic body camera video may be hard to watch.
Shots fired, shots fired. Shots fired.
Wow. The newly released video shows suspect Javier Hernandez Morales firing a gun at Deputy Riley Jarecki before she fires back and kills him. The California deputy was not hurt. She's on administrative leave. A bill to ban abortions after 18 weeks advances in Utah. Lawmakers narrowly voting the proposal out of committee in the state house. Abortion would be allowed for women who got pregnant after being raped or if their child had brain abnormalities. Planned Parenthood says it will challenge the measure if it becomes law. The bill now goes to the House floor for a debate. Samsung unveiling a new foldable phone, but this one is going to cost you. The company debuting the Galaxy Fold in San Francisco. It's a whopping $1,980 for a phone. Samsung says it can seamlessly turn from a phone into a tablet. It comes in 4 different colors. The Fold hits store shelves in April. And the Olympics could be adding a brand new sport, breakdancing, until December 2020 to make its final decision. But if breakdancing makes it, Brian, I know you are going to win that gold.
I would say bronze.
Silver.
I would say bronze.
You'll have to be on the podium.
I would totally watch it, wouldn't you?
I guess.
What's the least? I bet it would do better than some of the other sports. What's the one no one watches?
For a while, they got rid of baseball.
Yeah.
I don't watch any of it.
Well, they do need more people to watch, no doubt about it. The audience is diminished.
Dancing. People like to watch good dancers.
There you go.
Right. Rhythmic gymnastics. That's a good example.
Dancing with the Stars.
Right. That's a better example. Remember the part of the wall Beto O'Rourke wanted to take down? There's a new group of migrants there right now. Griff is live with the caravan next.
Plus, it's a video that will melt your heart. An Army sergeant surprising his wife and newborn twins in the hospital. The family is going to join us live coming up. There they are.
Some quick Hollywood headlines for you now. Country star Miranda Lambert's new husband is getting so much attention it is affecting his job. NYPD officer Brendan McLaughlin reportedly taken off of foot patrol and put on driver duty. But this isn't his first run-in with fame. He went viral in 2015 for dancing at a New York City Pride celebration. Look at those moves. And actor Chris Hemsworth will play one of the most iconic pro wrestling characters of all time.
You shall feel the wrath of Hulkamania. This is where the power lies.
The Australian actor will play Hulk Hogan in a new Netflix biopic. A release date has not been set, but I think he's going to have to bulk up a little bit, put on a couple pounds for that.
Will he play
How's he going
Thunderlips?
to do that?
I don't know.
Can't wait. Meanwhile, take a look at this. A brand new wave of migrants have arrived at the border with the United States and Mexico, and they are waiting to come into the country.
They're now camped out near the same border that potential 2020 candidate Beto O'Rourke promises to take down a fence if he becomes president.
Griff Jenkins is live on the ground down in Mexico with the caravan as the migrants are preparing to start their day. The sun's coming up. Hey, Griff.
Yeah, the sun's coming up, guys. Good morning. We're in Juarez, just across from El Paso, but that 1,000-plus caravan, another one coming across Mexico's southern border. You can see here, this is a typical shelter. There's two in Juarez. The police watching this one. We have video. We were in the other one yesterday. You can take a look around. It's the same scene with crowded conditions. Both of the shelters here are maxed out. Let me show you the numbers of what's happening in El Paso this year. In fiscal year 2019, they're up 478%. You have more than 43,000 apprehensions happening in the last 5 months compared to just over 7,000 last year. That is going to be information that many House Democrats are going to learn when they make a Codell trip down to El Paso later today. Meanwhile, we talked to one of the migrants inside the shelter yesterday named Randy Davison. Randy says that he's very happy to hear Democrats want to take the wall down on our border, but he's worried about a wall being built on Mexico's southern border. Listen.
Mexico ain't planning to build a wall. If Mexico was planning to build a wall, then I won't be worried about it.
Because then you can't come back.
Then I won't be able to come back. And Guatemala very ugly. It's like the same Honduras.
And DHS Secretary Kirsten Nielsen, by the way, guys, made a trip yesterday to El Salvador to try and meet with the Central American countries, Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala, to try and stem the root problem of what all of these caravans are coming. But one thing's for sure, they're not slowing down here, and the officials in Juarez are not happy about it. Guys?
Can just imagine. All right, Griff, thank you very much. Meanwhile, it's a surprise she never saw coming. An Army sergeant from Kansas flies all the way home from Kuwait to meet his wife and newborn twins in the hospital. The Cooper family joins us live from the Sunflower State. Coming up.
8 minutes before the hour, we are awaiting a news conference in Chicago where police will be updating us on the arrest of actor Jussie Smollett. We will bring that to you live when it begins. Plus, President Trump saying an Alabama woman who fled the U.S. to join ISIS will not be allowed to come home. The attorney representing her will join us shortly. And Covington High School's Nick Sandman slaps a massive lawsuit on the Washington Post. His lawyer is speaking out and will join us live. Big 3 hours coming up on this Thursday morning in America's Newsroom. Join Bill and me, top of the hour. A new mom of twin girls bursts into tears when a very special person shows up at the hospital.
And get started already? Okay. Oh.
Well, Army Staff Sergeant Skylar Cooper surprising his wife, flying all the way home from Kuwait to Kansas. The video going viral with more than 8 million views.
And, of course, you're watching it right now. And this morning, they joined us on Fox & Friends. Army Staff Sergeant Skylar Cooper and wife Cindy and their twin girls, Emma and Kayla. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so, Sergeant, how'd you pull up the surprise?
Well, when I left Kuwait, I had some equipment that I had to actually transport back here, and so I didn't have the exact date that I was going to arrive back in the States. So without having that information, it was kind of easy to keep from her.
Now, Cindy, did you find out you were pregnant when he was in Kuwait? Did you go through the whole pregnancy without him?
Yeah, I did. He actually never saw me pregnant.
So what was your reaction? We saw your tears. What was going through your mind?
I had been bouncing back and forth between our, but we have two sons that are 3 and 1 as well, and I had been bouncing back and forth between them and the girls at me. So, we added relief, probably, just saw him and just felt relief instantly and shock, because he usually can't do a surprise, and he managed that one.
He did, and you said you were actually texting him at the time, and to your credit, Cindy, you won 2 weeks early, right?
They were born at 33 weeks, so quite a bit earlier. And then he had texted me for an update. Like each day, they give us updates on him, and as a distraction technique. And again, it worked.
Sure, absolutely. So, give us an update on the twins right now. How are they? I know you're still in the hospital.
They're doing very well, actually. We're getting a lot closer to going home, but they're right where they should be. We're not having any major health issues or anything like that.
That's awesome. Skylar, when they let you go, when they let you come back home, you don't have to go back to finish the deployment, do you?
No, they were actually able to get me demobilized and then home for good. So I signed for all my leave, and I'm home for a couple more weeks at least.
All right.
They need to have mercy. Y'all have 4 little ones.
Oh my goodness.
How exciting.
So, Sergeant, you're with the Kansas National Guard. What's your plan now that you're home?
I'm active guard, and so once my leave is up, then I'll just go back to duty at the Junction City Armory.
All right, not too far from Fort Riley.
What a sweet all-American
That's right.
story. Thank you for your service, your whole family.
Well, thank you.
The growing Cooper family. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. That video's been seen close to
8
8 or
million
9 million
right?
times. Amazing. All right.
Look at that.
But just a look.
You can watch it over and over. Never
One last time.
Look, she has no clue he's behind her. She's texting.
Where have you been?
Susan Smith has been arrested and will be charged with 2 counts of murder.
Guys, good morning, everybody.